Acting, film, television, stage. Thinking about getting started? Need some motivation? Want to know what it takes to play in the big leagues? This podcast is for you.
Welcome to Faith, Freedom, and Fitness, the podcast where God, government, and gluten collide. Introducing your host, John Turk, a former police officer, fitness cover model, and the real-life inspiration behind Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. He is joined by Michael Wayne Foster, a former school teacher, actor, and model who's graced the covers of over 800 romance novels. Get ready for the F3 podcast.
So, John, I was just scrolling through IMDb, and little did I know, you're an actor. Who knew? Wait. And then I found my page too. We're both actors. We've been talking about fitness the whole time. It seems like we haven't paid much attention to the acting career, but we've both been in Hollywood. We've both been in television shows, commercials, feature films. So I figured we've got something to add to the conversation. And I thought, it might be a good idea on the podcast to have a little chat about, acting, and for people that are getting started that don't have a clue, sort of give them our background, what we did and what we think it takes to get discovered and actually start working. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I get a lot of people already asking me, when they see me, hey, how did you get started? How did you get your career going? What was the process? So I think it's important that we touch on a few things that we did in the beginning and other things that they can do to promote their career if they want to get into acting. But I think we should start off and let people know that it's not a profession that you have to, decide that, I want to make money. I want to be famous. You'll never be famous. You'll never make money, because you got to really love what you do. And you got to love trying to be something else. And acting, if you're memorizing your lines, it's going to show. You got to really take on the role. You got to really be the person. So if you're listening to this right now, if you don't love acting and you don't like becoming someone else or, being a character, don't even bother, because you'll never get a job. You'll probably get a job, but you're not going to have the career that you really wished for. So
be a YouTuber, start a podcast.
Start a podcast.
Well, all right, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you bat lead off. All right. I'll play cleanup tonight. Start off, man. As far as, all right, you're sitting there, you're listening to us. Like, I do want to be an actor. What's the first thing you need to do? Like, where do you even start?
Well, I mean, like anything else, I think I would tell someone to take an acting class right off the bat. And I would tell them to do a film class. Stage is different, because if you want to get into film, stage is great, but it's so different because stage is so big and it's so physical, right? You're on a stage, you're in front of people, you're actually performing. But when you're on camera, everything's basically right here, you're looking through the lens. And if you can't express things with your eyes and just like little facial expressions and be interesting, you're never going to make it in film, So you have to take everything from the stage and condense it down into this compact little, that's why I always see directors going like this and they're looking at something, right? They're trying to block everything else and see how it's going to look in frame. But I think a lot of people get in it for the wrong reasons. And the people that usually end up making are the ones that just absolutely love acting. And it's fun. Once you get into a role and you become that character, it doesn't happen by just watching a few movies, right? Like there's method acting and there's that, there's different forms of acting. Not many actors that I've seen can really just pick up a script, cold read it, and, hey, it's ready for the camera, right? It may be ready for an audition, but it's not going to be ready for, the final print or the final, opening scene. It's just not going to be. You have to, every single line, actually, people don't realize, has to have an underlying meaning behind it. And people don't understand how complex it is to be an actor. And when you see somebody on screen and they're really good, you got my favorite actor of all time is Gary Oldman. I absolutely love Gary Oldman. I met him and he's a phenomenal actor, especially in True Romance. When he took on that Rasta role, I was like, who is this guy? And I'm like, oh my God, it's Gary Oldman, So good. So there's so much more to it. So I would tell people to start out with an acting class and do one that's for film. And then if you want to do one that's for stage, you can do that and just decide if you like it, right? And then what I would probably tell people is, get familiarized with the lingo in the industry, right? There's a lot of lingo, stage left, stage right. You know, if you're on a film set, they're going to have different lingo and
Crafty.
crafty. For
Know
me
what
and you, that's a
crafty
good
is. It's
word,
your
you know?
best friend.
Yeah. So,
Totally.
yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I just think that it's something that everybody needs to, you know, familiarize themselves, especially if you're on set and the director says, "Hey, I want you to go over here or there." You know, you have to learn blocking. So I would always tell people also to get into extra work and start doing extra work and see how a film set operates and follow around people that
Without question.
yeah, I mean, it's really, really helpful and beneficial. And you know what people don't realize is that if you get into, you know, into extra work, once you get a certain number of jobs with extra work, you can get your SAG card. Once you have your SAG card, it's going to open a lot more doors, and it's just going to make things more available to you. And people talk about, you know, there's so many other things that are technical, right? Your pictures, your agent, and all those things. And there's a process behind getting an agent, getting your pictures done right, finding a photographer, a retouch person, you know, so there's those steps. So I would say if you want to look at steps, first of all, take an acting class, you know, make sure you're motivated, find out what you're good at. Some people are really good at characters, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a character actor your whole career. Look, you are just because of your height. You know, your height, you're a big dude,
Oh,
and people right away, you know, go, and even though you could do other things, and I can too, you know, my square head puts me in a certain category. I'm never going to be a dad, you know, a nice, fun dad. People are going to look at me as a mobster, a military guy. So find what your character is if you have one. And you know what? Be the best of that character you can be because you get work from that. And if you're working, that's all that matters, you know, and don't act like I'm
it's
sick of
crazy,
doing
John.
this. Yeah. Go ahead, bud.
No, it's just crazy that you said so a couple things that I want to expand upon about what you said. So I totally agree with you. If you think you like it, take an acting class. And the other thing you can do is, you know what I think that helped my career the most is I took an improv class too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a couple different things that I took, but improv is just like, I mean, you got to be able to think on your feet, and it just gets you comfortable being around other people. Because the first thing that is going to happen with a lot of people is you're going to be uncomfortable. You know, it's like you've got to. That's the thing with acting is there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable times
Right.
that you're going to have. You know, it's like
Right.
you're
Right.
creating another character, you're reading in front of other people. It's going to make you more comfortable. And then
Right.
I totally agree with you. Take an acting class. I mean, for me, I was doing extra work, doing things like that, but my career didn't take off until I started taking an acting class and actually understood the auditioning process and what you do when you walk into a casting office
Right. Right.
and all of that. But
Yeah. And
but
people
let's
gotta
start with
realize
let's
too,
start
like,
with
go ahead. Like a commercial audition is different from a film audition, you know?
oh,
So you have to,
totally,
you can't do
totally.
all of them at once. That's another piece of advice I just wanted to mention is pick a style, right? Do you want to be a film actor? Do you want to be a stage actor? Do you want to be a television actor? And stick with that one until you really figure that one out. Television, film, they kind of overlap, but sometimes television, you have multiple cameras going at once, and you got to be aware of that. And they film much faster, right? So I just
Yep.
think that stick with one thing because if you're throwing too much at yourself, it gets confusing and it can be really hard. So if you want to be a filmmaker, start off with that, you know, start off with your extra work, go on there and then start to see other people's resumes, how you do a resume, look at their headshots, find out who photographers are when you're on set. And you can get a wealth of resources just being on the film set.
Well, so there it is right there. Let's take it one thing at a time here. Let's start with, okay, so let's say you've taken your acting class, taken an improv class, taken a class, and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. If you're in an area that has a lot of filming going on, obviously Los Angeles, Atlanta, you know, New Orleans, Nashville, there's a lot of places. See about getting with, I believe it's Central Casting, and they still doing Central Casting. That's where you put all your information in there, and they're going to try to, you know, they'll call you and be like, hey, we need extras for this movie here. So the first thing that you're going to probably want to do, I would say, please disagree with me if you think I'm wrong, John, but you're going to need to get some headshots. I mean, a headshot is an actor's tool. So before you can go and have a reel, so a headshot is just that. It's a picture of, you know, John and I, you just do a whole, you know, whatever characters you want to play. If you want to play a dad, you probably don't want to be shirtless with, like, you know, oil and looking angry. You know what I mean? You want to look like a dad.
Yeah.
You know, if you're playing a Viking, then look like a Viking. But get your headshot for whatever you think your type might be. Maybe get a couple different headshots. You know, for me, it was always like military type thing, warrior type thing, some kind of a Viking or a Spartan, whatever. And then I would try to have one with, like, you know, just like a basic shirt on, you know, like this, looking normal. So they'd
Right.
have, so if something comes up that your agent or manager, submits you for, it'll be
Right.
like, they're not going to send you cool looking dad. And then it's, you done up like, the commander, the captain from Wolfhound. They'd be like, my God, this guy's terrifying. We don't want him to do that. You want it to match the role you're going for. So
Yeah.
once you get your headshot, that's when I think then you should probably start trying to get into doing extra work. And that is how I got my SAG card. It was the 2008 GI Joe. I got it was an extra thing at first, and then they saw me and two other guys. You probably know one of them. Do you know Tom Voss? He was with Optimum Nutrition for a while.
Yeah. I know Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom. He's
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Denmark. It was me, him, and this other guy. I think his name was like Coletti or something. But they were like, you three look like the Joes we want to do. So they brought us in and did all these body scans and all this.
Yeah.
We were the Cobra Elite Neo Vipers, and there's like
Mhm.
a scene where they come in and they have like the snake bite a guy, and they've got all like the special force lined up, and they had us all like front and center. So even though I was an extra, I got some FaceTime and all that. And because I was on it for more than 3 days, I got 3 vouchers, and that's what you need to join SAG. At least it
Mhm.
was back in 2008. So,
Right.
so that's how that started. So once you do some extra work, and then I saw what it was like to be on a big movie production set. Like you
Right.
said, you learn the lingo. We got to do the blocking. We got to do the rehearsals. Got to do the stage left, all that.
Mhm.
So you start to learn those things. And then what you're probably going to want to do is after you start doing some extra work, if you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And if I give a piece of advice to any would-be extra out there, make
Mhm.
sure your phone is charged, or bring a charger, and definitely bring a book, because
Right.
you are just sitting around all day waiting. And then it'll be like, all right, we need everybody over here. We need everybody over there. And you are
Yeah,
going
film
to be
set.
bored
Hurry up
out
and
of
wait.
your mind.
It's hurry up
Hurry
and
up to
wait. on
wait.
film. Yeah.
Hurry up to wait.
You know, you
You are
brought
going
up
to
a
be
good
bored
point
on
about
your
the
tree.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point about the improv, Mike. I think that would be a better acting class to take first. That's what I actually did. I went to Second City in Chicago, and I did that first
Wow.
before and then I did one in College of DuPage when I was in Chicago. So I did an improv class, and it was a lot of fun, and that's when I kind of fell in love with acting. Then I did Second City, and then I took a film class. And as far as the pictures, I don't disagree with you, but the thing I would say is with pictures, the problem is until you understand what's needed as far as a headshot and what you look good with, I would do them yourself. And there's an app out there that I think I mentioned to you where you can plug them in and they can make them look very professional. And that way you don't have to spend a ton of money right away getting headshots from a professional photographer. But once you get them, a lot of times when you register for an acting class, they say send your headshot in. Sometimes you got to audition for an acting class. They book up fast. They only have so many seats. They want to make sure everybody's on the same level. So always start with a beginner class. Don't try to get into some advanced class, But definitely get your headshots, man. That's going to be something that you want to consider. And just go on any acting website or like a talent website and look at, like, you'll see if you go to like, let's say I'll use an agency in Chicago. You go to Shirley Hamilton Modeling Agency and Talent Agency. You click on there and they'll say men, women, and you click on it and look at everybody's headshot on there and see what fits like your character or your look and what things you look good in. And that's what you want to do. You're going to have a nice dad look, like you said. You're going to have different headshots for different roles. Don't do too many. I think the most you should do is like at one time or like 3 types of roles. For me, it was like I would do a cop, a military, and then I would do a bad guy, like a mob guy, and those were the 3 looks I had. And I did have a suit later on, like if I was playing a lawyer or something. But, it's trying to figure out, what it is that you can do and you feel you're good at creating, it's what it's all about.
What your type is. And remember, John, the thing about, you're talking about me being a big guy, everybody's like, oh, you get typecast, right? And I'm like, what the best thing about typecast is? Cast.
Yeah.
I mean, I discovered it was kind of funny. I made my career. I guess you could say perfected do you remember the Bugs Bunny cartoons back in the day?
Yeah.
There were those 2 dogs, the little dog and the big dog that was always like, which way did he go, George? Which way did he go, George? That's basically all the characters that I played on Disney and Nickelodeon and all the kids' TV. I've done a lot of it.
Yeah.
It was always kind of like, which way is he going? But it's like, it's like I played serious stuff, obviously, with you. And I've done other stuff, but it's like my go-to in my wheelhouse was always kind of like the big dumb kind of like, okay, well, which way is it going to happen? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And But so going back into that, so once you get whether you do John's way of having Skynet do your do your headshots, or just do whoever, if you get them done, either way, headshots are first, and the next thing you're going to need is what's called a reel, like an acting reel, and that's where you're going to have together. You're going to put it. You're going to have to put your best work together that you've done and put it together on digital. It's digital now. Back in John and I's day, it was a tape and then a DVD, but you want to get that done so that way they're going to be like, all right, what have you done? And you can show them. And if you do make a reel, the one piece of advice I could give you is put your best stuff first and make it as absolutely, if it's this big, long scene, try to edit it where it's all you doing stuff, even if it doesn't make sense. Just because casting directors, they're looking at thousands for one role, thousands of different people,
right?
And they're just zip, 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 zip. They're not going to want to see a scene where you're talking. So they're like, I'm not trying to audition this other guy. I'm looking at, John Turk or Michael Foster. Why am I looking at a scene that's got 4 other people talking,
Yeah.
And remember, I mean, like I actually make Kazi's reels sometimes, and he and I, Kazi wants it to be like 3-4 minutes long of all these big scenes. I'm like, Kazi, just let me chop it down as short as possible so they can just see you and what character you bring, because they're not going to sit there for 3 minutes and watch. Never going to happen. And the way to
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, last thing, the way to get those reels, and I know you talked about this briefly earlier, is this is where you have to love acting, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to work for free, or John, does this make sense? Copy, credit, meal. All these student projects, when you look at your breakdowns, it's going to be like how much they pay, and you'll see ones that'll say copy, which means they're going to give you a copy of the what they did. Credit, they'll give you a credit on IMDb, and a meal. You're going to get a sack lunch with a bologna sandwich, a bag of chips, and maybe a Diet Pepsi if you're lucky. Right, that's it. And what you do is you take that, and that's how you start to build your reel. And I'm sure, John, your early stuff, probably, I know because you started right off with Sub-Zero, it was probably that sort of stuff. And then afterwards, if you got tiny little co-stars, even if you had one line, even if you're an extra, you just need something with you on film. And that's how you build your reel. So the 2 actors' tools, in my opinion, that are the most important right off the bat, you got to have a headshot, got to have a reel.
Yeah, and that'll segue into the next thing. So for me, I was, big on also, doing independent films, like you said, getting basically your credit and your meals and stuff like that, but also doing, the student films. And you might not get paid, obviously, for the student films, but sometimes on the films that are independent films, you might get a small thing. But what you want to do is, people are like, well, how am I going to know? The next thing I would do is say, go to some of those websites like Actors Access, Casting Networks, and open an account on it. And some of them might have a fee, but it's good because what you're going to do is you're going to allow yourself access to people that are submitting for parts that they want to fill. So I would say get on to like Actors Access, and this will help you find independent films, non-union work because you're not a union yet. And also Casting Frontier is another good one. Casting Networks. There used to be LA Casting, but they blended with Casting Network, so they're the same now. And then once you get your headshots, you load them up on there, and then you just start kind of perusing all the roles that are out there, and then you submit yourself right through it. And this way, you can build your resume. And there's also a lot of sites out there that you can. You're also going to need to find somebody that can make your reel. And if you have a friend like Mike's really good at doing that stuff, he's doing it for his buddy Kazi. I can do it pretty good too, but it's not that hard. And I would suggest making your own films. And in one of my reels, people really liked a clip that me and a buddy made, and it was just a short film, and it ended up being pretty good. And you could do something like that. One of the things that's interesting is Julia
with this right here, John.
Yeah, exactly. It works. You can use it, man. And so my wife, when she wanted to do Playboy, she did her own video back in the day when it was VHS, and she had a guy come out and film her. The big thing on his shoulder. He came out and filmed her, and they always told her she was too little for Playboy. She's half Asian. They said, we usually like tall blondes. So she was like, screw that. And she made a video of herself and why she should be a Playmate. And she sent it to Hugh Hefner. And when Hugh Hefner saw it, he said, I really like this girl. call her in and let's have her test for a cover. And so she went in and got a test for a cover, and it didn't work out, but she ended up doing other covers for them. So it really makes a difference for people to take matters into their own hands. Don't wait for things to come to you. Instead, be very aggressive, proactive, and get your act together and search out people that you know that you can get a hold of. When you get on your account like Actors Access or the IMDb, if you get the pro version, you can get emails of casting agents, producers, and you can send it there. Now, whether or not they're the ones reading it, somebody might be reading it for them. Go, hey, this is pretty interesting, right? Look at the guy from Journey. He got that. This lead singer from Journey, Steve Perry. He got that through a YouTube video. Make yourself.
And he was like from the Philippines or something crazy, right? He wouldn't even hear.
Yeah. But like it goes back to what we were saying, making your own video, right? Go make your own YouTube video.
Yep. See, with the technology now, it's so different. Like, I would say that when I first got started, it was right after, and again, I didn't get into acting because I did The Bachelorette. I just did The Bachelorette and came home to a small town where they saw that I was on TV. So the people that I knew that were doing commercials got a hold of me, like, you want to do a commercial? I'm like, sure. And that's what reminded me how much I loved acting. So my reel was full of like local Detroit and Toledo commercials. But the point is that I was still living in Monroe, Michigan, and I was moving to Los Angeles. So what I did was, and again, I'm not saying that this is the way to do it now, but it's certainly, I would think it's worth a try. I got headshots done. And I mean, they're not totally cheap. This wasn't a cheap thing. And I was a high school teacher, so it wasn't like I was bankrolling thousands of dollars easily. But what I did is I took all those headshots. You know what I mean? I got the manila folders. I put in there, I typed something out. I'm Michael Foster. I'm this. This is what I look like. Here's what I've done so far. And I put them, and I actually mailed, I think it was 135 letters, like, postcard, not postcards, but the actual headshots, 8x10s out to Los Angeles. And I think I got like 3 that got back to me. And one of them wound up being my first manager, which that's a whole story in itself. But the point is that now you have so much more accessibility to people through the internet, where you can get some stuff done, get your headshots, get a reel together, and then start working on getting an agent. But one thing I do want to say before we move on, John, is you were mentioning Actors Access and Casting Frontiers and all that stuff. I couldn't agree with you more. That is how you're going to find your jobs. I mean, I've even seen stuff on Craigslist before. So, I mean, they're everywhere out there, but we need to manage everyone's expectations. Understand you're not going to pay for Actors Access, and you're going to see it's not going to be like, oh, wow, here's a Marvel project. They're looking for the new Wolverine. Oh, DC's doing a new Superman, and they're casting Lex Luthor, Superman, and Wonder Woman. That's not what you're going to get when you're doing it. Now, the agents, this is why you get an agent. They're the ones that see that stuff. When I, like, for example, when I auditioned for Jack Reacher, I looked at the breakdowns every day, and never once did I see Reacher pop up. But when my agent sent me, he's like, hey, you got an audition for Jack Reacher for the main character. That's why you have an agent. They can get you the big ones. But if you're just getting started and you're looking to get like, okay, so everyone understands we've said extras. Those are the people that are the background characters. The step up from that is co-star. A co-star, they call it a 5 or under. They usually have about 5 lines or under by the contract. So if you have 5 lines or under your co-star, anything over that would be a guest star. And then if you come back over multiple times, you're called a recurring character. Bless you. And then and then you become a series regular. So that's kind of the hierarchy there, at least in television. Right. So just know that if you sign up for one of these, go ahead. That's all you're going to get. That's what I'm saying is all you're going to see is going to be co-stars, maybe a guest star. That's about as much as you're going to see on if you pay for it yourself without an agent. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. But one of the things that it's going to be really hard to do is get an agent. And what I would suggest first is what I did when I was in LA. I was having trouble getting an agent. So I found a manager first, and then he hooked me up with an agent. And the other thing I did that was pretty good is, which I'll tell a story at the end about this, is I did what are called showcases. So I would, what would happen was so when I was living in LA, my roommate was really good friends with like George Clooney, Keanu Reeves, and real cool dudes. I met them. They're all really good guys. And so his roommate was a guy that was on a TV show back in the day. He was a regular on called Knots Landing. He was my roommate, and he knew a guy that put on these showcases. So you had to get invited to it. or you would have to audition. So I got invited, so I didn't have to audition. And what you would do is you would go to this showcase, and they would hire a casting director. Usually, it was a pretty popular, pretty well-known casting director, and there was limited people that could have access. So you would have to sign up like 2 weeks in advance, pay your money, and it was like $25, and you would read for this casting director, and they would give you the lines, and they would peruse the crowd, and they go, this is for you, this is for you, this is your partner. And you would go up, and you would have, literally, they would say, you have 5 minutes to look over the script. And it was great practice. And then you're going to come in here, you can't look at it anymore, and I'm going to call you up as your pairs, and you're going to do your scene. And then it would take about an hour and a half, so you're watching everybody else's scene. Meanwhile, you got 2-3 pages of dialogue you're having to try to get in your head in 5 minutes. So it's going to really be beneficial for you to really know what it's like to get just thrown in with the wolves, right? And then you go up there, and if they like you, they will call you in for auditions because now they have your name. So it's a really good way to kind of backdoor the process that most people go through, and they're called showcases. Now, if you're in LA or somewhere else, you can just, Google LA showcases. And a lot of times there's big companies that put them on too. And what I did through that showcase is how I got my manager. So my manager is how I was able to get through a showcase. And then through my manager, I was able to get an agent. And you got to beware of scammers, though, because a lot of times you go there and they'll have like an agent, a manager, casting director, and there's going to be some scammers in there. They're going there. It's a side job for them, and they're going to try to make money. And, you just got to beware. Buyer beware.
Wait a second. Are you saying there's scammers in the entertainment industry?
No.
Say it ain't so, John. Say it ain't so.
Not at all. And SAG doesn't do a good job.
It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just crazy how, like, a buddy of mine, an Australian guy, he was funny. He was like, when you and I both, we've got tons of stories of people trying to scam us and everything else. I mean, it's like, and he's just like, mate, it's LA. What'd you expect? And I'm like, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, it's what happens out there. And it's just, it's the smiley glad hands that are just everywhere. And it's, but anyway, back to, we don't want to get too far. I don't want to go off into the weeds, but I will say what you said is exactly how it worked. The whole thing with, my manager now, John Thomas Talent, Benny Taylor, who you were with as well. He was, he's the guy that got me the representation that I had. I had an agent in Los Angeles for a long time, and I knew that most of the filming was going back towards Atlanta. And just a quick story, I did a very, very, very low budget movie in my hometown. And I mean, they flew me back, they paid me, it was great, but it was a super low budget movie. But it was crazy because for as low budget of a movie as it was, they did a pretty big premiere. So I go to this premiere, and all these local actors are there, and there's this guy walking around. And I mean, I looked at him, I thought he's a middle linebacker, and Benny's pretty jacked, and he's dressed up with the sport coat on and all this stuff, and he's walking around. He was kind of like smiling, pressing palms, kissing babies and everything. And I walked up, and he was like, kind of gave me his business card. He's like, "Is there anything you can do for me? Let me know." And I was just kind of like, I wasn't thinking this being a jerk or anything, but I'm like, I'm out in LA. I mean, well, you're going to hook me up in southeastern Michigan? Awesome. Not thinking much of it, right? Then I get back out there, and I'm like, I was just like, I just remember I was like, I really like that guy's energy. I like that guy.
Yeah.
So I was
Benny's
like, I'm just going to reach out to him and be like, hey, he is a good guy. And I was like, Benny, I just wrote him back, and I was like, hey, man, let's talk sometime. So he calls me up, we're talking. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not like interested to get in the, the greater Detroit area market or anything, but I am trying to get over to Atlanta. And if you have any hooks on any agents over that way, maybe we can talk. He's like, I'm going to get you an agent in Atlanta. And I was like, okay. He's already gotten me. He's gotten me an agent now in Chicago and Atlanta. And then he got me a movie overseas in Korea. So the point of it is like, ultimately an agent is what you're going to finally need to get the big roles and all that stuff. But they always talk about, a manager manages your career. I got so much more work and did so much more cool stuff and met you all because of my manager, Benny Taylor. And that's why I was like, man, this is, and should we explain to them how the money situation works for people that are thinking about it?
I was going to go into that after you had a break. So go ahead, go right into it, man.
You go ahead. Well, okay. The way it works is your agent gets 10%.
Yeah, you're right on it.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, just know this, like, you're always going to wonder, like, well, when I do work, who do I pay? How does that work? this is the standard norm. The way it works is an agent gets 10%. So that's right now, let's say you make $1,000 right off the bat, your agent's getting 100. That's what it is. And if you have a manager gets 15%. So they'd be getting 150. So if you're making $1,000, and this is something that I always bring up my buddy Kazzy. We talk acting quite a bit too, and he's always like, "Well, I got to imitate Kazzy when I talk about him. You got to realize, dude, you got 10%'s going to your agent, 15's going to your manager. So those 25, the government's taking what, 40, 45, 50. So basically, you're lucky to make, let's say, make $1,000. You're lucky to bring home $400." And I'm like, I know, right? It's crazy, but it's like I look at it like this. It's like, do I want half of something or all or nothing? If you don't have an agent or potentially a manager, you're probably not going to be working. So those are the necessary fees you got to pay. And, for me, I've got a fantastic manager. I've got fantastic managers because I'm with Kat as well. And my agent, Linda and Benny. So I have no problem paying out 25% or whatever I make because they are worth every penny of it. And I probably shouldn't say this, and to me more. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, take it over, John. What do you think?
No, I agree with you, and, people got to realize too that the film industry is completely changing. And I remember before when I first moved out here, I'd get an audition. I'd have to drive 2.5 hours up to LA. And that was horrible. And that was without traffic. And then when traffic hit at night, I'd get 4 hours back to go in for like a 2-minute audition, right? And then a thank you, and then you leave and you don't hear a word from them again, right? So, I mean, this whole industry is starting to morph. And I love that you can do a self-tape now. But the thing is people got to learn how to do a correct self-tape. And you can see classes out there, like even SAG will put them on every now and then. They'll put out a workshop, and it'll be on how to do a self-tape. And people go, well, I know how to tape myself. Man, there's so much more to it. Like for a long time, I was using that green screen as my background, and I didn't even know I shouldn't be using that because my green screen was for other videos that I could insert a background in. And they're like, no, they're really frowned on more than any background. I'm thinking, man, I wonder how many. And a lot of times they said once the casting director turns it on, if they see a green screen, they might not even look at you and go, this rookie's got a green screen, and they shut you off. And I'm thinking, how much time did I invest and never get seen because of my green screen? So you got to be really precise in what you do, right? So for me,
what do you use now, John?
I use a
do you
gray.
Use a green? Do you use a blue screen or a gray screen?
I don't use the blue. I use the gray. It's like a slate gray. Yeah, it looks really nice. I mean, I know blue is good too, but I just like the gray. It goes better with my skin tones. When I'm in front of that blue backdrop, I have more of like of a reddish tinge. You can even tell on my, my image. And if I'm in front of a blue, it's almost like I'm turning, I'm going to turn purple because blue and red make a purple. So it's like the gray just kind of matches my skin tones better. And even in clothes, I look better in gray clothes, So, I mean, you got to really think about how you're going to do your self-tape. So it's not real easy. You got to have a reader. And, let's get to an audition. I think that would be really good for people to know. When you're auditioning, there's some key things that you really have to keep in mind. And I think first and foremost is number one, whenever you do an audition, you have to create the environment. In other words, your location where you're at or the scene. You have to let the person feel or the viewer feel like they're in a scene with you. And what I mean by that is if you got a person over here and a person over here, you can talk to both people and look and turn. You can, if you hear a noise, you can look up or whatever. I mean, if that's what your scene requires, you have to create the environment. And too many people don't. They go in there and they just read and they never create an environment. So from the minute you walk on camera, you have to create an environment. And don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. There's some basic should do's and shouldn't do's. But in general, what you want to do is capture the eye of the casting director. And that is be as real and be as focused as you can be. And you don't even have to memorize, you could have your sheet there and you can kind of glance down at it and get your line and go. But a lot of times they just want to see that what your eyes look like are the most important thing. And whether or not you're creating an environment and whether or not you're conveying the story. And every actor, especially the newer guys out there, people don't think about it, but you're a storyteller. and you have to be able to tell a story. And you're doing that with your physicality and your eyes and just the entire process of auditioning. And now you don't have to drive to LA. You don't have to stand in front of a casting director. It's all you, man. And if you get a good reader with you, somebody that gives you feedback, Mike, I know you've been through this. Your casting director picks up the script and this is how they read for you. Yeah, go and do that. I told you to do that. No, I don't want to. They give you nothing. And you're trying to create your character.
Are you talking about my wife again? Karina? She's so like that. She'll get home from work. She'll work like a 20-hour shift coming home from the hospital and be like, I'm like, look, babe, I can't find anybody to read with me. Fine. Matter of fact, here was the other day.
Yeah.
Right there. That is the script I just did. Oh, so here's her lines. Okay. She'd be like, "Are you ready?" And I'd have to say, like, at the old mansion, some guy went in the house. She was the boss's summer closet. And she's like, "Was the door locked? Did you put the little label on it?" And I'm over here going like, she's giving me nothing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, and then it's all on me. So yeah, you're right, man. I mean, having a good reader, obviously the casting director probably doesn't care about the reader unless it's like incredibly annoying. But at the same time, if you're trying to do this and you've got nobody that's giving you anything as an actor, and if you become an actor or you are an actor, you know this, if you're not getting anything from your scene partner, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And you so many times I've been on auditions with casting directors and they just don't read. They just kind of just say it and look at you. And it's almost like sometimes
they say the lines.
They just, and don't even say it. Sometimes they'll just say it really fast and it throws you off. They don't even say it like it's a line. Wow. You go, and you're like, wait a second, can you do that over again? It's like, have some respect, right? Well, now we don't have to go through that. And the only time you do is like, maybe if you're on a second callback and they want to see you in person on a Zoom call and have you do a little bit quick read with somebody, but man, it's
or you have to pay to go do it
now that they don't have to read for a casting director. It's so much nicer. You're more relaxed.
Right. But and Johnny, oh yeah, but I want to, what you just said, you're so right. But maybe they'll call you in and the Zoom thing. So when I was living in LA, there was 2 different movies that I got callbacks for in Atlanta. So on my own dime, I had to pay. Now tell me how much this sucked. I know flying or driving from San Diego to LA is no bueno. Totally get it. I had to fly from LAX to Atlanta, get an Uber, go do the audition, Uber back to the airport and fly home. So right then and there, I mean, I'm dropping like what, at least for an audition, for a callback. I had 2 of them and 2 different times that happened, Yeah, so that like I would be so much nicer if it would have been a Zoom back then. But they're like, no, we want to see you. And my agent was like, you need to go in. So I was like, so I had to look for a flight. So I had to, go to, because Burbank doesn't go direct to LA or to Atlanta. So I'd have to drive over to LAX, pay for parking, fly over to Atlanta, do the audition, Uber there, Uber back, get back, Uber to the so I mean, it's like when going back to the first thing you said in this podcast, you gotta love it. If you don't love it and you're not willing to sacrifice or do that, or find ways to make it happen, then forget about it.
Man, that's rough. I never had to do that. Luckily, I had to just do the drive up to LA a few times, and it's not nice. And then you sometimes you sit there and you as you're, what it's funny is like, they say you'd have an audition, right? There's really 3 auditions. There's the one before you go in the room. There's the audition in your room, and then there's the one in your head when you leave the room and you go, shit, and then you do the whole audition again in your head, right? But it's like you have this set amount of time to perform. And if you don't, all this time and energy you spent is right out the window. And so this pressure comes on you. And it's like, what do you do? How do you manage that? And that, for me, goes into the next thing is managing your stress or your pressure when you're on set or something like that. And you gotta find out the best ways to, number one, center yourself, bring yourself back to where you relax and just don't worry about it and just do your best. And that comes with preparation, proper breathing, and number one, just being prepared is, I think, the most important thing. And if you're prepared, there's a way you can let yourself relax on set, and that is by breathing. And it's everybody always says it, deep breathing and this and that, but it's been proven that when you breathe in deep and then you breathe out through your nose, it relaxes you. And what happens is you have nitric oxide in your nose. So when you breathe in deep through your nose and then breathe out and push it out, it really completely relaxes you because it opens up your blood vessels and your capillaries, and it just helps bring a calming effect over your body. And always, your words have power. So never say negative things to yourself. Never say, shit, I'm going to screw this up. Just keep telling yourself over and over again, I'm going to do awesome. I'm going to blow these people away, because your words will have an effect on what happens. Because if you keep telling yourself, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit is going to happen, right? But if you tell yourself, I'm excited, I can't wait to do this, I can't wait to show these people my work, you're going to do good, you know? So always be positive.
It's fun. It's like, hey, guess what? You get to go play make-believe. It's awesome. I mean, it's the greatest job in the world. It's the job that you'll do for free if you can. So anyway, my superpower that I developed is amnesia. So what had happened is when I first started like doing serious auditions, I remember, I think it was 2015. Don't quote me, 2014 or 15, I auditioned for Cable and Deadpool 2. That Josh Brolin got it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, I'm not saying I should have got it or anything. The guy is definitely on the level. But that was one of those that I was around the whole time like, do you think they're going to call? Do you think Marvel's going to call? Are they going to call? Are they going to call? Did I do good? Did I do good? Did I do it? I think I did good. I'm not sure. And I'm over here just like killing myself over it. Yeah. And I realized that the best thing that I possibly could do is the minute I get finished with an audition, no matter what it was, no matter it's, you know, thug number one that says, hey, give me the keys, or you know, Cable and Deadpool 2, forget about it as soon as I leave the room, because if not, it's going to drive you crazy. I agree with everything you said. You've got to go into it positive. You've got to know this is awesome. The fact that you're even getting called in for an audition, knowing how many hundreds, if not thousands of people are going after it is awesome. All of it's good. But the minute you read, forget you did it. Because if not, there was a movie. Do you remember a movie in the 90s called Swingers with Vince Vaughn, John Favreau?
Swingers? That's what his breakout movie was. Vaughn's breakout movie was Swingers.
That is absolutely correct. Yep. Yeah. So there was the character in there, Ron Livingston's character, auditioned for Goofy. And the whole time he's like, do you think they're going to call me back for Goofy? They're going to call me back? Yeah, I'm just still waiting to hear back for Goofy. And he's like, you know, he was all like bummed out about it the whole time. And he's like, yeah. And the worst thing is it was so funny watching Swingers again, because I saw it when I was still a high school teacher, and then I watched it as an actor, and it meant so much more, because it was like, he's like, yeah, you know, my parents keep calling and asking me. The second thing I learned to do after amnesia, don't tell anybody about your audition, especially people close to you, including your parents. Because I told my mom and dad, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I just auditioned for this awesome Marvel movie or Star Wars or whatever it was. And then every other day, my dad would be calling, like, so did you hear back about Deadpool? About Star Wars? No, stop talking about it. So it's I didn't talk about it anymore. So you know what I mean? Just
there's an unwritten rule for me that I don't even tell people about the project until I'm done filming it. The only one who really knows is Julia, because sometimes what happens is your scene gets cut out and they're like, oh, I went to the movie and you weren't in it. You know, it's like, shoot, you know, what are you going to do?
100%.
So,
that's exactly right. And it's happened to us all, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've hit the editing floor a few times, and it's not fun, you know, and I'm like, man, why did I tell anybody? You know, it's just, you end up eating your own words sometimes too.
I know it. Well, hey, a couple other things too. So I really wanted to say, like, as far as things to do as an actor on set, there's a couple tips I think we can throw them, and please add to this. But I was like, the first thing is, and John, you've been on enough sets, I have too, that you know what's up. Man, don't be annoying. If you do happen to be an extra, or you're on a set at a very limited capacity where you're like a co-star, or, you know, you're not the lead, or just don't be annoying. Don't annoy people. Don't piss people off. I mean, there's so many people that just get on there and they're crazy annoying. And the other thing you can do is punctuality is huge. Like, don't show up late ever. If you've got an audition, like, that is the thing. It's kind of like the golden rule. Don't show up late to set. Because it's like, unless you're the lead and the star and the, you know, the person, they don't care. You're expendable. You know, it's like they can, look at, take Back to the Future, for example. I mean, they filmed like 3/4 of the movie with Eric Stoltz, and they're like, this isn't working. Got rid of him, brought in Michael J. Fox. I mean, everybody is expendable.
Expendable, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing I would say to add to that is even down to the cologne you wear. When you look at fragrances, I'm really sensitive. So I remember being on a set once and somebody sprayed a lot of cologne on, and I ended up being a little allergic to it. And my eyes started watering, my nose started running, and I had to do my scene. And it was really hard to keep my eye. A lot of times you don't want to blink. And I could not stop from blinking because the cologne was just in my eyes and in my nose. So be careful what you wear on set, that you may be irritating like the lead actor or somebody on there, and then next thing you know, you're like, hey, you got to get out of the scene, and here you're going to be a featured extra in the scene, and now you got to leave because your cologne's aggravated the main star, right? So you got to be really careful. That was something I learned that happened to me. So I'm thinking, hey man, that's a note to self, that I better not wear anything on set if I'm around like a Tom Cruise or a Vince Vaughn like I was. So you got to really be careful what you're doing and what you're saying, and you're right, be respectable. Don't go up to these celebrities and start asking them questions. And
don't be starstruck. Don't be starstruck.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. I did the Conan O'Brien show a couple times, and one of the times I went in there, the first time I was there, I was with another guy. He was talking about, I'm going to hire the most muscular writers in Hollywood. So it was me and this big dude, Jay Razor. They painted us gold like we were statues, and we're like basically in our underwear, sitting there in typewriters doing this. And Conan O'Brien comes in and he's getting his scripts from us and all this. And they're like, no, when you meet Conan, you don't want to like look him in the eye. You don't want to like ask him too many questions or anything. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I didn't say it. I wanted to say it, but I didn't. I'm like, I don't watch the show. I'm not starstruck. I just know he's probably my height and he's a ginger. That's all I know about Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
Don't care, so don't worry. And he came in and he's like, hey, how you guys doing? He always was bowing like he was Asia or something. He's like, thanks so much for being here. You guys doing great. I'm like, and he was a heck of a nice guy. But they set it up like he's some a-hole that's going to come in. He's like, don't make eye contact with the lead and all this. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I won't. It's cool. But so you need to be careful. And you've been on scene with big actors. You've done, I have as well. And it's like, the one thing you want to do if you're doing this, if you're really going to do it, act as if. It's kind of like, I got to tell a quick story. So I was on the set for that that Netflix show, The Ranch, with Ashton Kutcher and Sam Elliott. And it was on. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Kazzy got us some tickets to go and watch the filming because he was friends with Danny Masterson. Oops. Don't want to go down that road. Kazzy knew him from the gym. They were buddies. And Danny, and again, man, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Whatever happened. All I know is that Danny was the nicest guy to me and my wife. So that's all I got to say about Danny Masterson. He was nice to us. Anything else, I don't care. But the bottom line is we're up there, and Sam Elliott goes walking by, and I go walking into this room, and Ashton Kutcher is sitting there talking to these three guys, and they were talking about the best football celebrations after they scored a touchdown. And I'm going to have a point to this. Stay with me. So they're going on, and he's like, man, I like Chad Ochocinco. He'd like act like he was giving the football CPR and this and that. And I was sitting there, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm not trying to bite on y'all's conversation, but the best football celebration, in my opinion, was Barry Sanders. He scored a touchdown, took the ball, walked over, handed it to the ref, and walked away because I'm going to do this again. So not that I was being cool around Ashton Kutcher, but the Barry Sanders celebration is what I told them, because it was like, act as if. He's scored touchdowns before. He's going to score more. You don't need to jump around and act like an idiot and spike the ball and go crazy and all this.
Right.
That's like what happens a lot of times when people that have never been around celebrities or famous people before, it's like they're the normal people, and all of a sudden they just freak out. And I know it's happened to you before too. It's like, oh, there's Sub-Zero, they get all starstruck, and it's just like, that's fine if you're going to be a fan. If you're going to be a fan, be starstruck, ask for their picture, try to get an autograph, do you. But if you're going to be an actor, that is not a movie star to you. That is the person you're working with, and show them the respect of not giving them a hassle. You know what I mean? Don't, in between takes, like, can we get a quick picture? They don't want to hear that stuff. They're there to work. They're not there to be a famous person. Going back to what you said at the beginning is, are you doing this to be rich and famous? Because if you are, forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah, think about how much we put into it, time-wise, money-wise, and a lot of times you don't get anything.
Workout-wise,
think
about how many roles you've had where you've had to tighten up the physique.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I was reading
you got to diet down for something.
yeah, I was reading no, I was watching an interview with the guy from 90210. Guys, who were the two main stars in it? The guys. It was Luke
Luke
Perry.
Perry and
Yeah,
Jason Priestley.
yeah. It was Luke Perry actually. He said when he started out, went on 275 auditions before he ever got a job. So no,
Yep.
everybody out there, it could be a long time before you get something. Don't get discouraged. Stay strong. You're gonna get it, especially if you love it.
Have thick skin. You've got to have thick skin. It was funny
Yeah.
today at church. I was wearing, I go over to church and I was wearing a shirt that like it fit well, except my arms I got big arms, and I was having a hard time like getting my arms to the sleeve. So it made my arms look like I was bulging out of it. I wasn't trying to be that guy, but it's like the shirt felt good and that's what I wanted to wear. Well, I go into the life group class and everyone's giving me a hard time, like, whoa, arms, this, that, and the other thing. And afterwards, I'm standing down by the front door, and one of the guys in class comes up and goes, "Hey, man, I just wanted to let you know we were just joking today. I was just joking about your arms and stuff." And I looked at him. I said, "Jason, I'm an actor. I got the thickest skin in this place because I've been told no 98 out of 100 times."
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
and that's the thing is it's like if you're gonna do this, you better learn to get some tough, thick skin because
Yeah.
you are going to be told no. You are going to be rejected. You're going to be rejected because of your eye color, because of your hair color, because the color of your skin, because of the tone of your voice, because of your height, because of your weight. You pick something, pick any attribute that you have, and you're going to be told no because of it. And if you take it personally, you're going to go insane. And that's why I think actors, for the most part, are crazy people. Because it's like
Yeah.
we chase the dragon. We want to work because we love it. It's an amazing job. It's so much fun to do. But man, you have to be able to hear the word no and take rejection. And then
but you know
go
what's
ahead.
worse? You know what's worse than hearing the no or the rejection of why is hearing nothing. You walk out and they just say thank you, and you don't hear anything. They don't tell you why. Your agent calls them and they don't say anything, and you're just left with nothing. You don't get any feedback. And then you start going, man, I must have really sucked, right? That bad little voice in your head goes around and around. At least if, hey, man, they didn't like I was too big, or hey, my hair was dark, they wanted a blonde guy, right? I mean, you get nothing. It's kind of like the girl that you ask out on a date and she just looks at you and walks away, right?
And that's why you got to forget about your auditions, because it's stuff like John just said that'll drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, let's do this because we're getting time to wrap up here. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Tell me, what is the boldest? Everyone talks about if you're new to acting, when they say make bold choices, make strong choices. What that means is like don't go in and read it like everybody else. If the line is like right here, at the old mansion, some guy went in the house in the boss's summer closet. Say it with like at the whatever it is. Do something you think is going to be different than everybody else. Make a bold, strong choice. So tell me, I'll tell you one of mine, but I want to hear yours. What is a bold choice that you made in an audition? What is something you did that you were like, they might think I'm crazy, but I know it stood out, and you booked it?
Well, one of them was instead of being the typical character that they were looking for, I pulled it back, but I acted really like Psycho, and it was for just an average part, right? I'm like, to me, there's certain parts I know I'm not going to get. And this was for like an average guy part, but I just figured, what the heck? I'm going to read it like a Psycho. And I did. And I ended up getting a part. And it was for a movie that was called, what was it called? Janie Jones. And they ended up hiring me to play this creep from playing a Psycho, right? And I wasn't even that kind of a role. And so I just made a choice of, I'm not going to get this role. I just know it. My look always kind of pigeonholes me. So I made a choice to be this creepy, scary dude, and it worked. So, I mean, you just have to figure out when the time is right to do something like that, And a lot of times you don't know. It's like, I'm just going to do this. And, if it doesn't work, it's got to be a role where you think you're not going to get anyway. So you just want to just go for the gusto. If it's something you really want, you don't want to make it too bold of a choice, but you want to just make a good choice. And sometimes those bold choices, they don't go over well, And so you got to determine, is it going to be a good bold choice or is it going to be a bad bold choice? And that's what I found is something that I know if I'm really not going to get it because of my look, I'll make a really bold choice. And it paid off one time. Did it another couple of times and it didn't pay off. But it's like you got to do something different so they don't look at you as that same, that square job, dark hair. He's not going to fit the part, right? Move on.
Yep.
But your choice could get you another part in the film. And that's what I tell people.
What's the worst you got to lose?
Yeah. You don't know if when they're looking at you, they haven't cast another role in the film. And if you don't feel you're going to get this part, hey, man, make a bold choice because there might be another one for you. So,
Yep.
Yeah. How about you?
That's well, I'll tell you, it was actually the first time I was in Alabama. I think I've told you this story before, but I'll tell it again because it is one of my favorites. My buddy Matt, he's another plug for my buddy Matt. If you check out Hulu, he did Baywatch After the Sun. He directed it, produced it, put his own money up for it. He did a great job. He's doing something else now. When it comes to documentary filmmaking, I love watching his stuff. He does great. So there's my name plug and dropping Matt a line. He's one of my favorite human beings ever. But he calls me up and he's like, hey, can you do me a favor? And of course, whenever someone calls me for a favor, as I've told you, John, okay, what couch are we moving? What do you need me to come over and pick up? Yeah. And he's like, no, man, I'm helping these producers out for this movie that's starring like Steven Dorff and Donald Faison and a couple of these other people that were, pretty good names. And he's like, they're doing a table read. So for those of you that don't know what a table read is when basically all the actors, director, producers, writers, they come into a room, you sit around a big giant table, they pull out the script and you read the movie. That's basically what you're doing. And he's like, they want some extra people to fill in for like, man number one, janitor and all this. Can you go there and read some lines and just do that? And it was from, I'm over in Glendale and I had to go to West Hollywood, which, traffic in LA. It's just like, it might be 8 miles, but all right, knock off about an hour off your calendar right there each way. So I go over there to do this. I was like, okay. And the first thing I did, and let this be a lesson to those of you listening, I got there early. So I saw the script. I met everybody. And it was, do you know who David McKenna is by any chance?
I know the name, but there's a McKenna brothers that do Christian films. That's probably where I know that name from, McKenna.
Okay.
Or it's not him. Yeah.
He's the guy that wrote Blow with Johnny Depp and American History X.
Yeah.
And a few other things. He's a pretty big writer. So he's in there, and the directors, the producers. I go and shake everybody's hand. I'm just here to read. I'm just a guy. And I'm sitting there, I'm reading this, and the stuff they've got me doing is like it's an MMA movie. So they've got like Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. I knew who they were because ESPN, and I'm like reading their parts back and forth. And then there's like a ring announcer. So everybody that's in there and all the main cast wasn't there. Like I was thinking I was going to meet Dorff and, meet all these people. They weren't even there. It was just all these people filling in that went there. And they were all reading their lines like this. Yes, he went right in and he's wearing the boss's clothes. Like that's how they were doing it. And I'm like, man, I'm just over here having fun. Let's see what happens. So like Stephen A. Smith's part, it comes to me and I'm like, Max Kellerman, yeah, it's damn mine. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, Stephen A., I've been telling you. And I'm just doing this, like going along, like I'm just having fun with it. Well, it comes to the ring announcer part and I do the whole ladies and I go all in. And it's like, his name was something like, the terrorizer or whatever. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like it was the Slayer, it was like the Slayer. And I'm just throwing down. I'm going all in like Michael Buffer on steroids. Right. And we get finished and the table reads over and I stand up and hey, thanks for letting me come and read. A lot of fun. You guys, good luck with your movie. And I leave. I get in my car 10, 15 minutes later. Matt's calling me. He's like, dude, what'd you do? And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And he's like, dude, they thought you were hilarious and they loved it. And I was like, what? And he goes, hey, man, there's no guarantees in anything, but they're like, there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to get a part in something. And I'm like, stop it. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, cool. I said, either way, man, thanks for calling me for a favor because I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm an actor like you, John. It's fun to do this. If you don't have fun, you're in the wrong business. So I went over to that and didn't think about it. Get a call like, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks later. And I booked the role of the ring announcer. They flew me from LA to Birmingham. Again, I live in Alabama now. I'd never been here before. First class flight, put me up in a super bougie hotel, paid for everything. And here I am at the, it's called the BJCC. It's the arena. So I'm in the arena and you know how it works in a movie, like whatever scene they're filming this way, they fill up all the extras. There's probably 300-400 extras there that they're, they want to get on film. Then they move them over here and move them around. So I'm in the middle of the ring wearing a tux, doing the announcing stuff. And they just gave me the mic, like, just talk to the crowd, keep them busy. And I'm in there, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And my point is that if I wouldn't have went in there and just been like, if I'd have read it like everybody else, like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your first fighter, nothing would have happened.
You know what it was,
because I was
Mike?
all
You had
in.
nothing to lose.
Nothing.
And you had fun with it. That's what it all boiled down to. And that's what same thing with mine. I had nothing to lose, and it just all boiled down to having fun with it, and it works. And you got to be relaxed. You got to be into it. You got to have fun with it. And that's how most people get their parts, And I'll say one last thing before we close is when it comes to getting a big script with the whole memorizing thing, people memorize, and it shouldn't be memorized. You should go over every single line like you're trying to create this character in your mind along with the environment, because then it's going to stick in your head more than just being a single line that you're shoving into your brain on a shelf and then pulling it out when you need it. You can't be that. It becomes part of your vocabulary when there's an action attached to it. So I'll leave everybody with that parting thought is don't memorize. Try to make it part of your mental makeup when you go into the audition. You're actually trying to be that person or that, that environment, and just the words will come to you when you're in that environment. So
it's so true. It's so true. All right. Well, hey, let's thank our sponsors, Ultimate Windows and Doors Huntsville. Go to ultimatewindowshuntsville.com. They've been in business for more than 18 years. They've installed over 100,000 windows, and they do have an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. We'd like to thank Justin Leonard for that amazing graphic behind me and the cool intro you see at the beginning of the movie and at the beginning of the podcast and the end of the podcast. That's Justin-Leonard.com. And we've also got VJDWebworks.com, professional, affordable, and they do hosting, security, support, website design. They do it all. VJDWebworks.com. Of course, then again, if you're in the greater San Diego area looking for a trainer, you've always got Mr. Fearless Fitness over here to look up. And hopefully coming soon, we're going to have a new show on YouTube called Iron Mike's Kitchen. More to come on that later.
All right.
But in the meantime, hey, John, why don't you take us out?
Stay strong, stay faithful, and stay free. We'll see you next time on the F3 Podcast.